The battle for the throne reached its boiling point. Within the suffocating walls of the palace, the air was thick with the scent of iron and betrayal. Ulrich and Winston found themselves locked in a dance of death, both exhausted, both desperate, and both blinded by their own arrogance as they ignored the true threat lurking in the shadows. Betrayal is a blade that cuts both ways. As Duke Ojas fell, a victim of his own nephew's cold-blooded ambition, the battlefield shifted. Winston felt the surge of a killer's high, not realizing that he was merely trading one enemy for a much more dangerous fate. But Ulrich had been playing a different game entirely. For weeks, he had feigned exhaustion, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He looked at Winston, not with fear, but with the chilling patience of a predator who had already predicted his brother's pathetic demise. Just as the final blow was about to be struck, the world seemed to freeze. Henry and the mysterious masked Landon sauntered into the carnage. They weren't fighting, they were observing, and their arrival shattered the illusion that the throne was still up for grabs. The revelation was swift and brutal. Henry hadn't been hiding, he had been busy dismantling their support systems. With a flick of his hand, he unveiled the proof of his victory, the heads of every commander loyal to his brothers. The war was over before they even realized it had begun. Realizing their downfall, Ulrich and Winston broke into a frantic escape. They navigated the labyrinthine, deadly corridors of the building of absolute death, hoping their knowledge of the secret passages would save them. But the building had other plans. The pursuit was relentless. Landon displayed superhuman agility, moving with a speed that defied logic. He wasn't just running, he was closing the distance, his eyes locked onto his targets like a heat-seeking missile. The brothers had nowhere left to run. Elsewhere, Vlad and his squad encountered the building's lethal traps. Greasy stairs and snapping floorboards claimed lives, but they held firm. With the discipline of veteran soldiers, they secured their descent, proving that the absolute death of this building was no match for their technology. Below the ground, the horror unfolded. Vlad found himself trapped in a pit filled with starving beasts. It was a fight for survival, but even in the belly of the beast, Landon's soldiers brought order to chaos, utilizing their advanced gear to survive the impossible. The final confrontation was swift. Landon intercepted Ulrich in a hallway, delivering a blow so precise and powerful that it shattered the prince's will to resist. There was no grand speech, no mercy, only the cold, hard reality of defeat. With his brothers broken and his enemies scattered, Henry stood as the sole victor. The power struggle that had ravaged the kingdom was over. The crown was within his grasp, and the true ruler of the empire had finally emerged from the shadows. Victory brought clarity. The system confirmed the success of Landon's mission. The temple of Dragmus was uprooted. But a shadow remained. The elusive leader was still at large, plotting in the darkness. The war for the throne was over, but the war against the shadows had just begun. The morning after, the palace was swarmed by furious mothers. Lillian and Kyla, driven by the primal need to save their sons, stormed the grand hall like vengeful goddesses. They weren't there to negotiate. They were there to reclaim what they believed was theirs. But they were too late. Henry sat on the throne not as a weak prince but as a king in waiting. He watched the queens with a calm that infuriated them further. He had the power, he had the hostages, and he had the final say in their sons' fates. The sight of their broken sons brought the queens to their knees. Ulrich and Winston, once proud princes, were shadows of their former selves. The realization hit them hard. The power they had fought so viciously to preserve had crumbled into dust. The final humiliation was the letter left behind. The masked man had vanished, and with him the princes. The queens, overwhelmed by their own rage and desperation, collapsed as the truth set in. Their sons were gone, taken to a land they could never easily reach. While the empires burned with intrigue, life in Baymard continued its steady march of progress. Momo sat in his classroom, blissfully unaware of the wars abroad, discussing the latest episode of the Power Rangers with his friends. It was a world where the biggest problem was a fictional villain, not a real king. In Baymard, the drama was of a different sort. When Natsu innocently accepted a lunchbox from a classmate, he was promptly kidnapped by his jealous peers. The absurdity of it all was a testament to the peace Landon had built in his home city. Yet evil does not sleep. Far away, Master K, the leader of the Temple of Dragmus, sat in his lair, seething. His base was destroyed, his secrets exposed. He didn't know who had struck him, but he vowed to paint the continent in blood to find them. Back in Corona, the festive mood was infectious. The entire capital was preparing for the wedding of the century. Queen Penelope and Duke Benjamin Hamilton were the center of the nation's joy. It was a moment of light before the next storm. The wedding logistics were a marvel of Baymardian engineering. From solar-powered cameras to meticulously planned decor, the team from Baymard treated the wedding like a high-stakes military operation, ensuring every detail was perfect for the upcoming televised broadcast. Poor Penelope was the only one who wasn't having fun. Trapped in a changing room by her relentless friends, she was subjected to a barrage of dresses and fittings. She wanted to fight in the battlefield, not in a boutique. Even the strongest men knew when to retreat. Seeing Penelope in the throes of a wedding-induced meltdown, Adrian, Carmelo, and Santa opted for survival over chivalry, silently fleeing the scene before they could get caught in the crossfire. Progress was everywhere, even in the hotels. The Bulong Hotel had evolved into a standard-bearer for Coronian hospitality, all thanks to Baymardian internships. It was a symbol of how one city's ambition could rewrite the lifestyle of an entire nation. But not everyone celebrated. Prince Sky watched the festive preparations with poisonous envy. He felt that the world was celebrating a future that was rightfully his. His resentment simmered, waiting for the right moment to strike back at the people who had stolen his spotlight. The pieces were moving into place. Deiphorus had been subdued, the temple was crumbling, and the wedding of the century was mere hours away. Landon watched the sun set over the horizon, knowing that the most important day of the year was about to begin.